Hello and welcome to the Be Formless Flow Driven CEO podcast. I am welcoming to the show Kavita Shenoy. Welcome to the show, Kavita.
Good pronunciation, B. Good pronunciation.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's good to have you here. And you are in the Innovation Hub Tech of India in Bangalore. And yeah, we were having a quick little talk about that. You did call out a stat actually. Did you say it was like, what did you say about the Tech Innovation Hub of India there? What did you say?
Called Silicon Valley of
Right.
India.
Yeah,
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 it is.
yeah.
But there are lots of cities now that rival us because I was telling you that it's also crazy in traffic. But
Yeah.
we have Hyderabad also, which is close by, which is in another state, which also gives us quite a lot of competition in being the Silicon Valley of the country. But yeah, so a lot of the tech innovation, a lot of the IT services companies back in the 90s started in Bangalore, and so there's obviously proliferation of easily accessible software engineers. You can throw a stone and hit at least 10. So it's easy to start up a tech company in Bangalore.
Yeah, very cool. And you a bit of yourself, like in terms of your background, because and even what you're doing now, like you're the founder and CEO of Voiro, which is an ad revenue management platform for premium public publishers that unifies direct and programmatic workflows to improve revenue visibility, ad ops efficiency, and decision quality. And you founded Voiro in 2014, so it's 12 years young, I will say. I just like the way I said young. I just what's the point in saying old? It's young, right?
It is. I feel like we reset every 3 years because I keep going back in time and coming back forward because we were talking about how COVID really did a number on all of us, and it really did a number on us too because we had just raised our second round of funding on the cusp of COVID, and this is where experience really matters because we decided we would spend, because you raise money to spend, right? But we spend into a black hole till we realized that the whole world had come to a standstill and we had to quickly put on the brakes. And to your point earlier, that when we were like chatting, descaling and decelerating after you've set yourself on a pace is painful. It's easier, I feel, to scale and get everything running, but then when you try to like roll back, there's so much heartache. There are so many things that you second guess, you delay on a lot of things. But so like those 2-3 years really did a number on us, and we're still kind of recovering from that right now. We're in the shadow period of recovery, but I'm also as optimistic as you for 2026. So
yeah, well, it's the year of the horse. And what do they say? It's a 1 year or a 10 year. I thought it was just a 1 year.
Apparently, it's the fire horse. You got to get that.
Sorry, the fire horse. Yeah, so it's kind of all that movement and momentum, but it actually doesn't start till next month. So we've still got a few more weeks of shedding. So the fact that you're still in shadow recovery, that actually works out quite timely, doesn't it? Really, but But the interesting thing is, like, we've got a bit in common in terms of, well, I haven't worked at Google, so you were previously at Google, and you were also at Lowlinter, so advertising agency. My background's advertising communications as well. We've probably got some, good old war stories to share. And you also host the Voiro podcast on media monetization.
Yeah.
You're not only this, power, founder, woman, entrepreneur, but you're also a mum to two daughters, 15 and 17 years of age, which is, you said it's a really good time. I've got I've got three nieces all at that age. So they give me a lot of stats, and I learn a lot from them when it comes to, I guess digital, online, social, etc. as well. But tell us a bit about your journey. Like, what made you go from Lowlintus and Google, if you like, and then become, what was your drive to become a founder of your own company? Was there something always innately in you that you were like, I want to do this myself? Like, what was it?
Yeah, I think it was a bit of everything, and also some amount of rebellion and hubris, right? You're like, I'm better than this. When you go back to yourself a decade ago, you're like, oh my God, I was so full of myself. But that kind of helps propel you forward and gives you that kind of some amount of courage, right? Because it requires you to have some amount of unwavering optimism about yourself. Sometimes delusional, but that kind of helps you on a daily basis. I think when I started out my career in advertising, it was serendipitous because I was looking for something to do. And I met a couple of people, and my husband at that time had said, why don't you meet a couple of people to figure out what you can do? Because I decided I didn't want to study after my graduation, and I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to do a master's. So, I wanted to get a job. And those days there was no LinkedIn. It was word of mouth. You had to go leave your resumes at the secretary's desk in the front office.
So true.
Yeah, so it was ridiculous. I don't even know how I got that job, but somebody spoke to somebody else, and they said, "Why don't you go speak to this person who I'm still in touch with?" And he interviewed me. And his name is Joseph George, and he actually has his own agency now in India, and he became the CEO of Lolintas India, a couple of years after I left. And so back in the day in advertising, and I'm sure today as well, there were a lot of good leaders, right? There's a huge difference between managers and leaders. I had good managers as well, but they were very, very good leaders that actually made you better than you were, right? So when Lintas found me, and then when I left Lintas, I was a way better professional and a person, because I was really young when I joined advertising. I'm sure so were you.
Yeah,
we just
babies.
Got into it, and we were like, this is like college, because everybody's like, there are arguments over the creative brief. You're in a bar like till 2 a.m. in the morning, then you're going to
so true. We had a tea lady. There was all this crazy stuff that used to happen. I was like, what?
Like in everybody's business, and we're all friends, but we're colleagues. There were a lot of blurred lines for the first 5 years of my career. And I realized that I wanted to do something more, not just like the path to in advertising at that time. And I was in client servicing, so you had to be in either planning, and it was very cerebral and numbers oriented, or you had to be in creative, where you're thinking about these wacky ideas and trying to figure out how strategy fits into creative communication. And I was in between, and I was very sure that this was going to be where I could really do my best, right? And I was also very fascinated by the turn of tech, because my husband at that point in time was working in a company called Wipro, and he had gotten a job in Microsoft. So I was very curious about this MNC work culture, where they all were drinking this Kool-Aid and wearing, logoed sweatshirts, and everybody was and I was like, hey, what's going on here? And location matters. So I was in Bangalore, and it was, like I said, and it still is, the tech hub. And Google was setting up in India at the time, and they were setting up AdWords. They were trying to get agencies to adopt it. They were trying to run training, and they wanted to get people from the agency background to be evangelists and spread the good word, so to speak, right? So I interviewed for this, and the HR people at Google actually helped me. Right? They were like, please go and study this, read this on the internet. They're going to ask me these kind of questions, right? Because they knew that I'm coming from an agency world, and I was like, what are these AdWords, right? Where are the videos?
I know. I know. Can I just say one thing there, just to pause on that for a second? Isn't it funny that you've just called that inside out? Because everyone thinks that if you've been in advertising or worked in advertising, you know everything about the most performance-based advertising, or like you say, AdWords and things like that, when actually majority of us have no idea, because
absolutely not. And at that time, it was, even today, media buying, planning, creative, etc., was still very making a television commercial, trying to figure out, who's going to be your next brand ambassador. There was so much. It was so different from this whole performance intent-based, search keyword-based advertising that people would not recognize. Well, some agencies did, and they did really well in India. And so I was part of this team who evangelized it, went and ran training, educated people on AdWords. And I was part of Google, where they made us do exams on tech, and the passing grade was 85%. So I was just spun into this world of just trying to be great, right? Instead of just being good. And advertising, you could pass off by just being good, right? And here they just wanted to have a bunch of professionals that really knew what they were doing, and they were very hard on us at that point in time. And so I got to meet a lot of people during Google who were very driven, and I was about 25, 26 at that time, so I really imbibed a lot
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah.
And when I was at Google, I had both the kids, right? I was at that age, and I had both of them back to back. And my initial job was in Bombay, which is well, it's like the New York of India.
Yeah.
Expensive, it's small homes, it's just like rush, 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 beautiful energy. But unless you're from there, bringing up kids there is not something that you could actually do.
No.
So I had to make a choice and come back to Bangalore. And it's so funny that we're talking about this right now because remote working has become the order of the day. And I wanted to do that like 15, 16 years ago. And they were like, no, if you have to run this role because all the agencies are here, you have
Have to
to
be here.
over here. And I was like, I'll travel and I'll stay there for 2, 3 days or a week at a time, etc. And they were like, no. So then I applied for roles internally at Google, and I took a desk job, right, which was media operations. And when I joined Google in 2008, Google had also acquired DFP at that point in time. And so by the time 2013, 14 rolled around, when I was back in Bangalore, they were trying to roll out operations to set up YouTube mastheads and YouTube in India. And so I said, okay, fine, I'll do it. Right. I just said whatever, right? At this point in time,
I could
I just
imagine
wanted
you doing that. I don't even know you. I've just met you today, and I'm like, I could just imagine you going, okay, fine, whatever, I'll do it. I'll learn
I
it.
just do it. Right? I'll just do it. And there again, I lucked out. I had a wonderful team. I had an excellent team, and they're all over the world right now. And you remember a lot of people who really influenced your life back in the
Yeah.
day. I'm sure that they didn't realize it because they were just being themselves. But it was an excellent, excellent team. I had them. I was, the head office was out of Sydney, Australia, and there were a fun bunch of people who took work seriously, but not that seriously, right?
Yeah.
So it was
Not
a
saving
very
lives. Yeah.
yeah, not saving lives. And so you developed a very different way of working with people instead of being conditioned into being scared about your work, right? You were very open about it. You were still very forward and professional about things. My communication changed because like it or not, in India at that point in time, the way we worked was very, very different, right? It was not as you could not be professional and casual at the same time. But that there is this mix that working with companies outside actually gave you. And today, of course, everybody has exposure to that. But I felt a big shift. Simple things like how to write an email, right? We used to be so formal in our email writing when I used to be in my agency days. But then when I came to Google, it was a little less formal. The words that we use, how we formed our communication, how we spoke to each other, this whole concept of a video conference and all of that jazz was mind blowing at that point.
Yeah, because
But
can I just stop you for again, pause you? I won't say stop, pause, but you think about it, like that was a new world. That was a new world.
yeah,
Like they were emerging brands, emerging businesses that were introducing what even only some businesses and brands are now introducing into their organizations. Like
yeah,
they were trailblazing this new
absolutely.
new world, right? Like and
Yeah.
you were part of that.
Yeah, and anyway, and they had imported a bunch of their American managers to come to India to sort of spread the Google culture, right? And it was heady. I would just say it was super heady because I was part of what is known as the LCS team. They were breaking away from their back office operations that they had set up in India, and they were setting up client facing teams, and I was part of that team. And Google also hired from large organizations like Apple and
Mm,
IBM, all of these, to bring in structure and scale and a sense of largeness, even in the way we interacted with our customers. Because otherwise we were just like, everybody was just out of college and high on sugar and sitting in an office somewhere full of Google swag, right? And we had to like start getting out into the corporate world, and we corporatized ourselves. So we were like the corporate version of Google. And I got to work with all of these like stalwarts from all of these large organizations who gave us frameworks. So it was like a 6-year MBA, right? Where I
Yeah.
went, got polished, and then I got tired of it after a point because, again, I realized that unless, like in advertising, unless I was in engineering or I was somewhere where a project was being run outside of India, I wasn't really. I'm going to be middling around in this company, right?
Mm.
I didn't have too many ideas as to what I would do there, but I wanted to get onto the publisher side desperately because in Google you're allowed to do a 20% project, and I decided to help out a colleague of mine with their YouTube publisher relationship management, where they would go to these publishers and tell them how to use YouTube, how to make money from it, etc. And I found that these guys have absolutely no idea about what to do. They're leaving money on the table. They can easily do deals. They can easily understand their data better. And they were just so focused on creation of content because, like, it's very involving. Like creating content
Oh
in and
my
of
gosh.
itself is like 1,000% of your time, like, And so whether you make money from it or no, and if somebody is giving you 45 cents on the dollar, you're like, I'll take it because, I don't know what else to do from it. But there was a big big need in the market. So I tried to get onto that bandwagon. Again, it was a Bombay based role, and they said no, unless you move to Bombay, it's not going to happen. And I was like, oh god damn it.
Yeah.
So I decided to throw the towel in because I was like, I'm in Bangalore, I'm not an engineer, it's not going to happen for me, and these guys are not focusing on the south of India any which ways.
No.
So, and I said, okay, fine, I'll start up on my own. And my younger daughter was 3 years old at that point in time. And my older one was about 5 or 6 or something of that sort. And so I decided I'll quit and I'll start this company. And there was only one friend of mine who said, are you sure? And I was like, what? Because everybody else was like, yes, amazing. You're starting your own company. You're going to be your own boss. And,
I love it.
it was amazing. Like, oh, yes,
What
I'm
was
doing
your
the right.
husband saying? Was he backing you?
Yeah. He said, yeah. So I think I've lasted for 12 years because he's been a huge support, right?
Yeah.
From
So
he's
important.
he's into sales, and so he would come and teach us, the ABCs of what to do to be able to sell. And he's been a rock, and not in a way that was patronizing or condescending, but more like do more and you can, and giving me ideas and so on and so forth. So I think it's very important to have people in your corner. And I think to the last 12 years, that's precisely what I've inadvertently kind of corralled for myself, right? It's not like just cheerleaders for the sake of just cheering you on, but people who you can talk to. There are different handles that you go and, you hang on to for certain types of advice. I have a lot of lawyer friends who I run certain things by. I have people who started up companies. This friend of mine who said, oh my God, are you sure? Was part of a startup at that point in time. And she had seen the dark side of starting up. And
There's
she
always
was like,
dark before the light, though, right? There's always the
yeah,
dark. And it can
yeah,
be dark
there's
for a
always,
while. Yeah.
yeah. But I was so enthusiastic. I think it made up for a bunch of the chaos that was thrown my way. And I think that is my single most redeeming factor that I'm optimistic about most things, right? I think that is something that you really need to sort of develop. As somebody once asked me, man, how are you always this happy? And I was like, I think I'm just choosing it because I can choose to be
Yeah, I agree.
down,
Yeah.
right? But the trying to build that muscle memory of choosing to be happy, right?
Well,
Choosing optimism.
It's choosing to wake up every day and go, okay, I can, like, I had one of those moments this morning where I was getting in my head and I was like, and I was thinking, I think I was just having a moment, questioning a few things, and I just quickly pulled myself out of it. I think I was walking Molly Bob and he was like looking up at me and I just went, yeah, you know what? We're walking. I'm just pulling myself out of that. No. And then next thing I was just like, okay, I'm cool now. Like I think the quicker you can recognize, be aware of it, and then go, I choose not to go down that path.
Absolutely right. Absolutely. Yeah. And understanding the triggers that you have in what makes you happy, right? And what would you kind of like you need to figure out, like I'm sure that you're an active person and you like to go out and hike and run and whatever else. I love my yoga in the morning. So
yeah,
I make sure, even though I'm like, it's cold outside and I don't know, but I just somehow just make myself go there, right? Just appear there and then everything else will follow.
What's it?
There are
What's it called? The 5 second rule? You do it like give yourself
yeah,
five
yeah,
seconds. Yeah,
exactly. You just
yeah,
do it in 5 seconds.
yeah.
I think Brené Brown also spoke about this whole thing about just getting to it. And then I'm a huge believer of habits. And so you're keeping everything ready because I know that, I mean, all of us are flawed human beings. It's not like anybody is actually wanting to get up at 4 a.m. in the morning,
No,
right?
no,
They're
no, no.
doing something to reward themselves for this crazy schedule that they have. So I think that reward and understanding yourself came about maybe 5 years into me running the company.
How
And
did
we
you?
were
Oh, sorry, you go. I was going to ask you a
good.
question about the girls.
Yeah. The girls.
How
Oh my
did you?
God.
So because you were like the girls were young, like they were 3 and 5. I'm assuming,
Yeah. I
and you're
think I
like,
co-opted all my friends, my family. India has enough help as well. We have paid like affordable nannies that we can have.
okay, yeah,
But I would take them to work if there was homework to be done. They would sit, and my office was right next to my house. It was like a 200 square foot little space that we had rented out initially. I remember I remember once crying at 5 o'clock in the morning because we had customers in Bombay, and they're an hour away by flight, and to make sure that we were economical, we would take the red eyes, like the early morning flights and late night flights. And so my younger daughter had some kind of they had like a what we call here as fancy dress, but it's like a masquerade thing where they dress up as
yeah.
something, and she was playing as a bee or something in her gymnastics class, and I was missing it, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm missing this. And I was feeling so sorry for myself. But my husband, like, I'll send you a picture, and you'll be back in the evening, and she won't even realize it. So I think the guilt of what you put on yourself, like I'm sure when you leave your dog alone at home as well, you're like, oh my God, I hope
Yeah,
everything
I
is
did that
okay.
today. I was like, oh, I feel bad because we've had holidays together, and he's like,
Yeah,
now he's looking at me as if to say she's back at it. Here we go again, and I'm like going,
yeah,
oh,
yeah. The guilt is, but it's self-inflicted, right?
I
Because
agree.
it's something that you can get over. And I think with both the girls, etc., and the family, I decided that we need to spend more quality time together rather than just me hanging around, right?
Mm, mm.
um, and you put systems into place, you put brakes on yourself. And for me, I realized that unless I have some downtime, which is just to myself, like reading a book or going for a class or taking a walk or going for a run or whatever else, I would always feel like I would feel like I'm giving too much of myself everywhere and be
I
scattered.
hear you. I feel you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would keep putting back there, right? And then uh, earlier on in my Google career, when both the kids were very, very, very small, I decided I would start therapy, right? And it was very uncommon in Bangalore, unless you were, I don't know, unless you were suffering from a mental illness or you were going through some kind of a life altering, situation like a death of a parent or something to do with you wouldn't really access therapy. And this was back in 2015. And so this was back in 2009, 10, when both my kids, when my first one was really small. I had them very young, and so I went for it, and they gave me 10 sessions. And those 10 sessions were very nice. And the lady who was my counselor at that point in time, I just went for it because I thought I had anger management issues. And they were like, you have no anger management issues. This is just life and stress. And so I had all these frameworks that they gave me so that I could box things into place and learn about myself. And this is something that I keep telling my friends and my colleagues and my children and everybody to do is like learn how to deal with yourself, because you're the only person who's the problem and the solution, right? To everything.
Yeah, I love that. It's so
Yeah. So
true. It's so
it is.
true. And I think it's okay to have, I love that you're calling so much. You're being so open and vulnerable and honest. And I love these conversations for that reason, because I think that we do need an objective perspective. And your husband's been your huge support. You talk about having people in your corner, but I think at times you also just need that really objective perspective. And I've had the therapy sessions over the years, just a check in. Like I'm like the 10 sessions or the 8 sessions. I'm like, okay, I'm good now. I can go again. But I take away what I needed of it, and you get called out on some things where you're like, oh yeah, okay, I need to hear that, and I need to
And more often than not, and no more often than not, you land upon it by yourself, right? They kind of guide
absolutely,
you.
yeah, Yeah, because I always have this thing where I'm like, okay, I'm done now, and I break off the relationship because I'm like, I don't need this anymore because I have, yeah, I'm good. But then I'm like, okay, I think I need another check-in every now and again. Like I did it during burnout. It was my most recent. But yeah, I think it's really important in
It
as a
is.
leader, as when someone is a high performer, top of their game, or really anybody, but I mean, think more so when we are high achieving, we put all these expectations on
Yeah,
ourselves.
yeah,
Have
yeah,
you ever,
absolutely.
yeah, sorry, go.
Go ahead.
I
Have
was
you
going
ever?
to ask you, have you ever had any moments in the last since you've had, and I want to ask you about the name actually as well, because I do love the name Voiro and I want to understand how you got to that brand name. But have you ever had any moments in the business where you just wanted to pack it all in? Like I know you said you generally do an evolution of the business every 3 years, but has there been any moments where you just like, you
Yeah.
couldn't, yeah,
Year one, year three, every year, every second day, you're like, oh, can somebody come and buy me out? Will this be okay? I think you have self doubt and fatigue all the time. We were actually four founders and we whittled down to one. And the three of them actually decided that they had had enough. And that was a very, very tough year for the entire company, including me. And unlike you who stayed in touch with your founders, I didn't, right? Because it came down to, you know, me versus them,
yeah,
their ideas versus mine, and so on and so forth. And there was so much that went on in just
too much
under
water under the bridge.
under 6 months, right? And you suddenly realize that. And before that, I thought I was the problem. This is where I realized I was the solution, right? Instead of the problem in itself. I went back to therapy. I went for leadership coaching, thinking this is something that's I'm not doing right and whatever else. But I realized that at the end of the day, you can't force people to be any other way other than the way they are.
Mm,
They bring the energy that they bring into the room. You have to be responsible for the energy that you bring into the room and your own. You The only thing that you can control is yourself, right?
so true.
So control the things that you can. And that's what I realized, because otherwise you're constantly trying to control another person's emotion, another person's ability to think of the business differently or wanting to commit differently to the business. And then you're just falling short because they have so many other influences in their life. And
It's a hard
I
lesson
think
to learn, don't you think?
it
Like
is,
it's
it
but
is.
when you finally learn it and you finally realize actually it's not me. Like I mean, we've all got to take responsibility for ourselves. But you find when you actually realize that I feel like takes such a weight off you in terms of you're not stressed, you're not questioning yourself every second of every
Yeah.
waking moment of the day.
Yeah.
You're
For
not
like
on
six
guard.
months, I was scared.
Yeah,
I would get up in like drenched in cold sweat, thinking, "Oh my God, we have to shut this company down. We have live contracts. We're on a good decent path. It's not like I'm not the next Google, and never was going to be, because our addressable market was anyway very small. We were very niche. So we have a named account list of companies that you will recognize and know. It's not even like it's going to be like half the world or whatever, right? It's a B2B specific
mm,
product is for a specific problem for companies of a specific size. So
mm,
you're going narrower and narrower and narrower. And so our total addressable market was going to always be small. Exits were only going to be either M&A or private equity, never an IPO. And it was always that. But I think somewhere along the way you get carried away by the successes that you see around you, or what you believe are successes that you see around you with other companies, and you want to be them. And then you don't recognize the fact that you've chosen a different path, and then you try and be them, you try and reach somewhere else, and then you realize that I can't, because you haven't built yourself, or you're not in that space. Maybe in a different context you may be able to do it. So I think the frustration does set in there. And then this entire thing with venture capitalists, and also in general, the way companies work, you're like, in 7 years you got to have an exit, you got to have hockey stick growth, you got to be this, you
yeah,
got to
it's full on.
you're like, yeah, it's completely full on. And then you're confused. It's, am I running a business where I'm creating jobs, delivering value, driving profitability, paying my taxes, paying people salaries, getting like job satisfaction and having good time, versus am I having this hockey stick growth? And you're so unforgiving to yourself, and you feel like
Yeah, it's the
You
pressure,
know,
isn't it? It's
it's the
such,
pressure, yeah. And you are the failure, right?
yeah.
Or your partner is the failure, your business partners are the failures, or they are the ones holding you back or whatever, right? So I think I went through about 6 7 months of this chaos, but I had like again I had very very good help, and I was able to ask for that help. So I had a good leadership coach, I had a really good therapist, I had my friends and family around me as well, and I also signed on a nutritionist, right? Because I was like, I'm eating like shit, right? So I'm just grabbing whatever I want to. And I'm like, I'm okay to have 3 martinis on a Wednesday night. So I'm like, this is crazy. So then I went on this went on this 10-week program, which continued for a good number of months after that, where I just teetotaled. I went on this diet
Good on
and
you. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
and
like listening to you. I feel like yeah, I can. We're like
yeah,
soul sisters in a way because you go from like this disconnected create. You're almost like crazy. Like, am I crazy? Like, and then you almost have to. You have to step back, and go, right, how do I reconnect with myself? And it sounds
yeah,
like to me you've got that interconnection in
yeah.
order. You can still have a good time, but you know what I mean. But I do think that a couple of final questions for you and observations as well, and love your thoughts. But I think that at times, whether it's the background industry we've come out of, or whether it's the type of personality we are, we're one extreme or the other, and so you're either 100 miles an hour, or you're doing yoga and you're having a Zen moment, and that's been me. But I'm coming more and more into the realization and understanding that actually this is because you always think that's boring, right? But it's actually no, this is the most centered place I can possibly be, because if I'm in too zen, I'm too bored and I'm too chill. But if I'm up here, I'm like in hyperactive crazy mode, and here it is. And when I always thought that was the boring bit, and I don't think it is anymore. I think that's exactly where I need to be and want to be, and it's the only way to thrive and sustain longevity as a leader in life and in business. And I think though that the people that are able to do that and get that whole self sorted will really accelerate in the year of the fire horse.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I
like that,
think,
I called it out. I called it the
yeah,
fire
yeah.
horse.
No, I see that you brought it back in. Yeah, I mean, it's it's one feeds the other, right?
Yes,
And the minute you
yes.
recognize it, that it's not just all or nothing, it's like a bit of everything, and you realize what speed you want to be at, and you're comfortable with that speed, and you still don't think that comfort is being unambitious, right?
No.
A lot of people equate comfort to laziness and unambitiousness and not being ambitious, and it's a balance of everything else. And then understanding that from a leadership perspective, well, I'd love to just go back to a job, right, and just do my work, and get paid for it, and let everybody else figure out how are you going to grow this company, where's your next customer, have you paid your taxes, what's the next board meeting going to look like. I realize I bloody love it, right? I love
Oh, I love that
dealing with
energy.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love dealing with people. I like
Mm.
seeing people do better than me. I like my team being way better than myself. It's almost like I'm representing this band of amazing specialists that I'm going to market with, right? So I find that that gives me joy, right? And I'm not, and I of course we want to be like a large company, we want to make a ton of money and all of that jazz, but I still want to do it my way. I still think that if you recognize that you can pull together a bunch of people, and they give you energy and you give them energy back again, I think that that exchange is what
Value.
drives you
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Couldn't
And a
agree more.
lot of people quit companies because their teams become places where they drain them of their positivity and energy. Their managers are terrible. It's all
Yeah.
about people at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
So far it has been, that's the journey, right? In terms of leadership, in understanding how and where I fit into the corporate world. Why have I started this? Because I started it on a lark. I didn't start it on the fact that I wanted to be the next greatest leader. I wanted it to sort of change the face of revenue operations and advertising, right? I started it because I just thought it would be the greatest thing I could do for myself. And I still think it's the greatest thing that I'm doing for myself, right? And then if it's good for me and I'm the best at what I can be, I'm assuming that it's going to spread to everybody else, and that will sort of create, you know, momentum.
And your nieces, and your nieces, my nieces, I look at my nieces, sorry,
I do all this.
your daughters look
Yeah.
up to you and they look at their mum and they're like, wow, mums, look at
Yeah,
mum.
they,
She's like
they,
this.
it's 50-50. Sometimes they're like, what are you doing? Right? Isn't this like
But
way too long?
they're watching. I know my
Observe.
niece, I know my nieces sometimes they're like, oh, they call me Crazy Annie B. Like she's Crazy Annie B, like the things I've done over the years from when,
Yeah.
like you just want the adventures I've taken them on.
Yeah.
Two final questions. Your way, just coming back to your way, and the fact that you're in this shadow recovery you're talking about, but also that, we're in this, the latest revolution, which is AI. What does your way look like in knowing 2026? We've had a massive year last year with so much transformation, even from an industry perspective around, programmatic, etc., and what you're seeing. What are you seeing as your way and how your way can influence that within the industry you're in through the business through Voiro, if that
Sure.
makes sense what I'm asking.
Oh, yeah. So when we started off, when we started raising money as well, we wanted to raise money towards AI and ML, right? And at that point in time, the genes still didn't fit because we didn't have the tools and technology to be able to bring out AI and ML into the product. So we decided to sort of dig our heels into workflow automation.
Mm,
And so, like, you're only as good as your data, and you're only as good as your organized data, even with AI, right? And whether it is, a RAG framework or agentic AI, etc., it's all about the context, all about the data you're feeding it. And whatever you're asking it to do is based on that context. So I think over the last 7 to 8 years, with all the customers that we've worked with, we've organized a whole bunch of data. A lot of companies have benefited from the fact that they made a decision to bring us in and really sort of were militant about people following a workflow, submitting stuff, making sure that they followed a lot of compliance in the way data was maintained in their ad booking, in their ad delivery, in reconciliation, in billing. So today, I can switch on AI for any of my customers based on just a small brief of where do you want to start. Because along the advertising monetization workflow, right, there are different types of roles. You have a
mm,
sales role, you have an operations role, you
mm.
have an analyst, you have a programmatic analyst, you have a direct sales guy, you have annual business plans. You have so many things. They're different roles and they require different contexts and therefore different agents, right? um, so depending upon where the organization wants to really start building out their moat, and I feel like every company from an agentic AI perspective, it will be their moat, right? The
Mm.
way they develop it, the way they create, it will be their calling card, which will differentiate them from somebody else.
Yeah,
Because you're building on a bedrock of already existing data that made you the company that you are.
yeah,
Because every single company has a different way of selling, different way of creating. I mean, from a media perspective, right? It's not one size fits all,
no,
unlike programmatic,
it's not cookie cutter.
scaled. But
Mm,
even there, people are trying to get into more nuanced ways of selling. And if you look at what's really kind of catching everybody's eye right now is, live and live events and influencers and so on and so forth. So it's stuff that's slightly more unpredictable and more designed to be more custom. But if you apply AI to that, you get to version one really fast, right? And you are able to supercharge what you can do. And so people will start thinking ahead. It's like having, you're trying to create your own team from the people that you already have. So if you already have a great bedrock of data, which most of our customers do, and most of customers who use like good workflows will have, AI is only a matter of choosing where you want to start, right?
yeah.
And why you do that. So it's very exciting. We've done a bunch of projects. We've done stuff. That stuff is in production from our side in terms of analysis and so on and so forth. We realized where we failed, where we want to go. The industry is also like buzzing about various types of model protocols, wanting to sort of talk to some other agent to bring in demand, create a
Mm.
plan. All of that, I think, is good, right? But you still need people. You still need people to
Yeah,
push it to the
100%.
next level.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
to keep the differentiation with your moat. And then final question, this has been a good conversation. when you book in for the pod, I always ask what's one unique insight or lived experience when it comes to life leadership and or business. So rather than it being a question, because I didn't get an answer from you, I'm gonna leave it with what would be one piece from all your lived experience or insights in life leadership and or business, what would be one bit of advice or words of wisdom that you would leave the audience with for your final
Well,
meeting?
I would say two things. One is, you're enough.
Oh
There's
yeah.
nothing that you need more than that. You're enough. And the second one is be kind, right? Be kind to yourself, be kind to everybody else. Just be kind, right? And I think that really puts everything into perspective, because
Mm.
you can tell somebody about something that's not so great to tell them, but it's a kindness to tell them because it's going to help them somewhere along the way. Also to yourself, right? Where you
Mm.
accept certain things about yourself, which are either shortcomings or failings or whatever else, you're kind to yourself, right? Because you're not being as hard on yourself as you need to be. You're telling yourself some truths because you have to make sure that you accept it. You're being kind to yourself, and you're you're moving forward from there on. I think these two things, I think if you're able to keep these in your vision and constantly kind of bring you back to it, I think you'll be all right.
Yeah, I love it. So good. And Voiro, how did you come up? What's the is it?
Oh my God, the name Voiro was after a lot of shouting and screaming and trying to figure out whether we can get the URL and the name, but it was from a French word called voir, and I'm sure I'm pronouncing it wrong, which was to see. And one of the things that we were doing was we were building workflows, and we were surfacing data for different teams to be able to interact with. And so we said, earlier it was all very hidden workflows. And you would send emails, there would be some spreadsheet, somebody would be working like 3 a.m. Nobody knew what was happening. And so these workflows kind of surfaced a lot of this data. So it was to see. And then the Voiro was because I guess at that point in time, nonsense words were making
Love it. Very cool. It's I and my advertising communication background, I have to know what the meaning
yeah,
is
yeah,
because so many
exactly.
do. And
Voiro is
everyone laughs at me when I
like,
ask, but it always like, yeah. Okay, so
yeah.
on that, how do we find out more about Voiro? How do we find out more about you?
Yeah, so you can look us up on our website, which is voiro.com, and then we have the podcast, which is the Voiro Pod, which you can find on any of the podcast links. We started out because we had to pull back budgets on PR, and we said we have to be on the airwaves somehow.
Yeah, I love
And so
that.
we started talking to people. We meet very interesting people in our day to day in the monetization space, and they're not the regular guys. They're not the leaders who are spokespeople for their companies, but they're actually people who are from the trenches and who have had a lot of
Oh, that's cool.
experiences through the entire journey. So it's a good conversation.
Yeah, and then we can find you on LinkedIn. I've got that in the show notes as
Yes.
well. Kavita, you like loved it. Like start, it's early in the week and your energy and your enthusiasm and the choosing to be optimistic, you are enough, being kind, but also just this go-getter and just this trailblazer and like I love it. It's been such an awesome conversation and the fact that you're continuing to be formless, when it comes to shaping and reshaping and what's next and
Absolutely.
not holding back. So very, very appreciative of our conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting me, and good luck to you. And I hope we get to work together in the future.
Yeah, me too. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Bye.